is the best ever performance for the BJP and the worst performance for the Congress party. The NDA likely to get anywhere between 270 and 282 seats, the UPA between 92 and 102 seats, and the BJP on its own between 230 and 240. That is the best performance for the BJP, 50 more than what former Prime Minister Vajpayee had delivered for the party. But what does all of this mean now for the economy? What does this mean for the growth trajectory of India? What does this mean for the stock markets, which have been touching record highs every single day? We've got a power-packed panel now to decode the election impact and the impact on the economy. Joining us this evening to give us a market perspective, Ajay Srivastava, Shekhar Gupta, noted journalist, N.K. Singh of the BJP, Siddharth Birla, the president of FICCI, Meera Sanal of the Aam Aadmi Party, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, Rajya Sabha MP and a supporter of Narendra Modi. Appreciate you joining us. Shekhar, let me come to you first. I know polls have often got it wrong, but at this point in time, what the figures clearly seem to be suggesting is that Amit Shah is man of the match because he's delivered the goods for the BJP as far as the state of Uttar Pradesh is concerned, and clearly Narendra Modi is the man of the series.
Well, I think throwing somewhere Congress party and Rahul Gandhi as well, because they dropped many catches. So I think all of this adds up to the kind of picture that your poll is now predicting. And also, you said that this will be the best ever performance of BJP if they get between 230 and 240. Frankly, if your sister channel's poll is correct, and if the BJP gets between 230 and 240, it will be the best ever performance for any party in India since 1984. So you're looking at a very big tectonic shift in Indian politics if this were to happen. So this is a very, if this poll is accurate, if it turns out right, I know that's very difficult to poll in India. That's not to cast any aspersions on the quality of your pollsters and your psephologists. I think they're first class. But I think if this is right, then this will be a big shift in Indian politics.
Absolutely, and we're caveating that this is after all a post-poll. But nevertheless, Shekhar Gupta, if I could ask you, what has been the big difference? Because as far as North India is concerned, and clearly the numbers seem to suggest that there is a Modi wave. There is some southern comfort for the Congress party in states like Karnataka and Kerala, and I'll talk to Rajiv Chandrasekhar about the state of Karnataka. But as far as the north of India is concerned, it's very evident that the numbers are showing that there is a Modi wave.
Well, India is now maturing. Indian electorates are maturing. So Indian voters now know that they are voting not for the assembly election, they are voting for a national election. So while in the assembly they may vote for their regional leader, they know that their regional leader will not be able to give them a good, strong, functioning government in Delhi. So I think it's just the way an electorate matures. So Indian voters now, if you travel in UP and Bihar, they say, ye bada election hai. Chote election may will vote for Lalu or Mulayam or Mayawati or whoever. So people of India are now electing a prime minister, and that is Modi's, and you can see Amit Shah's success, because they have positioned this election as a vote for Modi, whereas the Congress party, unwilling to offer a counter, a competing product, has allowed this to be structured as a vote, as seeking a vote against Modi. So between a vote for Modi and against Modi, it's evident that a lot more people now seems to be buying the idea that they should give Modi a chance, and we'll see. You don't elect anybody forever.
You know, Shekhar Gupta, I'll come back to you in just a bit, but let me get N.K. Singh in on this conversation. Mr. Singh, you know, as far as UP is concerned, Amit Shah seems to have delivered the goods for the BJP, but the other big story is the state of Bihar and your erstwhile party, the JDU, being decimated in the state of Bihar. Lalu Prasad Yadav gaining in, and along with the Congress gaining in the state of Bihar, but it continues to be advantage BJP. Do you think Nitish Kumar made the strategic mistake of breaking away? The timing was wrong, the decision was wrong, and he's got it all wrong as far as the 2014 general elections are concerned. Bihar now swinging towards the BJP as well.
Well, first and foremost, I think that he didn't make one mistake. He made several mistakes. One was, of course, the strategic mistake which you mentioned about parting company with the BJP on the 17th of June 2013 without realizing the implications of that decision. Second, I think getting increasingly defocused from what was the unique point of Nitish Kumar, namely a development agenda for Bihar, and a development agenda on which considerable progress had been made under the NDA government, and moving away from that into an agenda which became exclusively focused on identity politics and exclusively focused on the survival of his government, which had gone into a minority. So I think it's a combination of wrong calculations, moving away from a development governance-centric agenda to a narrow identity-focused agenda. I think are mistakes in which, pursuing that agenda, Bihar would have gone back. And I think if these figures of yours about Bihar are right, Bihar has opted for Modi because Bihar believes that the national policies under Modi, of which it will be proud to be a part, which will bring India greater stability, it will reverse expectations, it will improve the degree of outlook on the future, it will catapult growth, it will improve job outlooks, and it will have the multiplier effects.
I know you believe that it was a strategic mistake. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I know you believe that it was a strategic mistake for the JDU to break away from the BJP. But Narendra Modi's campaign has been mounted largely on the issues of development. Nitish Kumar, and you can't deny that, he did manage to turn the state of Bihar around. Development has very solidly and firmly been placed as far as Nitish Kumar's agenda is concerned. So why then has the state of Bihar been so unforgiving, if the polls are correct, as far as Nitish is concerned?
For the precise reason that post 17th of June 2013, that development agenda took a huge beating. Crime went up, law and order situation deteriorated. The focus of Nitish Kumar and his team, and many of his best ministers came from the BJP also. You had some outstanding ministers there. The development matrix slowed down, and people started realizing that we were fast going back to the old Bihar, and that he was saying goodbye to the new Bihar, which he had done a lot along with the BJP to usher in.
Let me bring in voices from industry as well, because the big fear as far as corporate India was concerned was, is it going to be a hodgepodge? Is it going to be a nightmare to manage a multi-party coalition? And at this point in time, I think those fears have successfully been allayed by the numbers that have come up. Sunil Munjal, the former president of CII, let me go to you, sir. Do you believe that as far as corporate India is concerned today, you can heave a sigh of relief, because it seems to be a very clear, decisive mandate?
Certainly. The caveat, of course, is that these numbers are good, because industry has been saying for a while, we need a government that can take decisions, stand by its decisions, focus on growth of the economy while understanding there is a need for social programs, but you can actually only fund them if you grow the economy, and you can grow the economy if you grow the industry. So the industry was very, very keen that there is a stable government in place. And this seems to show that there would be.
You know, before I talk individually about what industry wants, let me get a quick comment in from you, Sunil Munjal, on the state of Haryana. And it seems very clear as far as the poll picture is concerned that Bhupinder Singh Hooda has probably headed the Sheila Dikshit way as far as the state of Haryana is concerned. I know you operate from that state. I want to get your quick comments in on that.
Haryana as a state has performed exceedingly well, as you know, over the last 2 decades. But the big problem that Haryana as a state has seen over the last 5 or 7 years is the situation regarding labor. That has become very bothersome. Haryana's strength has come from both agriculture and industry, while industry has continued to grow, but the labor situation has continued to worsen for a while now. I have to say the government has been very, very supportive, but the situation has still not improved.
Okay.
So I don't know what that means for the leadership. Yeah.
Let me very quickly bring in Siddharth Birla as well. Vote, as far as the economy is concerned, a decisive mandate is equal to fast-tracking the reform process. There is a question mark, but that is the hope and that is the anticipation that people are building at this point in time. Siddharth Birla.
Yeah, Shereen. First of all, of course, we'll wait for the poll numbers to convert into actual numbers on the 16th. And certainly, pardon my voice, I just lost it, I got it back. Certainly, I think one very important thing is that the governance and the development agenda has come back absolutely center stage. And if the numbers as they are showing pan out, it means that the people of India voted for the governance and the development. And equally, BJP and NDA will have to work pretty hard and very, very fast to deliver that. And show the way forward.
The expectation is that the BJP or Narendra Modi will come to the center and they'll wave this magic wand. He'll be Superman who's going to rid you of the policy paralysis and all of that overnight. There needs to be some expectation management as well. And let's be realistic. How easy is it going to be to export the Gujarat model of development and growth and bureaucracy and all of that at the national level?
I think I mentioned on your own channel earlier that the first thing is going to be there's no magic wand. So things are not going to happen overnight. But I think we can have a roadmap in very, very short order. And there are 2 or 3 other things which are on which the development agenda also hinges. One is, for example, one of the biggest pressing problems before the country is inflation management.
Yeah.
If inflation is not tackled, we don't see many of the other positives
and it clearly is not tackled, as the numbers today very, very clearly show us.
Right now it's not tackled. So something special has to be done. Very fast executive action has to be taken to try and mitigate it. It can't be made zero. This is number one. Number two is with a clear mandate at the center. The decision making, the policy making at the center, even if it's not legislation, gets freed up from the pressures of the regional parties and the states. And therefore there is a model where you can
not necessarily, and I'll argue with you on that issue, because when it comes to things like land, it is a state subject. So a lot of the investments and a lot of the projects that are stuck are on account of clearances that are pending with state governments. But I'll argue with you on that in just a second. Let me bring in Rajiv Chandrasekhar as well. He of course has been a supporter of Narendra Modi and his campaign. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, before I get to talk to you about the national picture, a quick comment on the state of Karnataka, where it seems to be at this point in time advantage Congress. The BJP is not going to be able to replicate the tally that it had in 2009. What do you think has gone wrong? The Modi wave seems to have escaped your state.
No, I don't think so. I think the numbers are wrong. I think the 16th you will find, I'm fairly confident that you'll find that the numbers are closer to the inverse of your poll, where I think the largest share of the seats will go to the BJP and the others to the Congress. So I don't subscribe to the numbers.
So you're questioning the Karnataka poll, Rajiv. Are you questioning the other states as well? Because if you're saying that there is an error as far as Karnataka is concerned, then are you as confident about the rest of it?
No, I have a perspective. No, Shereen. I tend to always say when polls are involved, I always say let's wait for the real thing before we argue. But because I was in Karnataka and I was actively involved in the campaign, I think. I know those 14 or 15 constituencies that the BJP are going to do well, and so I will humbly and respectfully submit that I don't agree with the numbers.
Okay, you don't agree with the numbers. You believe that in the state of Karnataka, though the poll at this point in time seems to suggest that it's advantage Congress, you believe that the BJP will do better. Let me very quickly get in a voice or voices from the markets as well. Punita, thanks very much for joining us. The market at new record highs today, anticipating a Modi victory, anticipating a Modi win on the back of the numbers that we've thrown up, 270 to 282 for the NDA and 230 to 240 for the BJP. Do you believe the markets have priced in these numbers?
I think to a large extent they have priced in, especially given the rally in the last 2 days. So I think the last 2 days have really factored in a lot of these numbers. But having said that, I think I think while, in my view, the Indian investors, the domestic Indian investors, are much more plugged into the news flow on elections, and so they probably factored all of this in. But a lot of the global investors are not quite as plugged into the Indian election on a day-to-day and a moment-to-moment.
But it's been the FIIs that are driving the markets, Punita. It's been the FIIs that have been driving the market so far.
I think, yes, some of the FIIs have, but the broader group of FIIs, especially ones that are investing in a large number of countries, are not going to be able to follow these polls in the detailed manner that a domestic institutional investor can. So I think that because of that, maybe there is some upside left after the election results if they don't disappoint and they don't come below your numbers.
So if the numbers stand as they are and as per what the poll is suggesting come the 16th, what kind of an upside do you see? The Nifty already at 7,000 today. What kind of an upside do you see from these levels, Puneeta?
I think it's very difficult to say. I think in my view there is not a lot of upside left heading into the election results, which is going to be on the 16th, and then after that I think the results have to be different than what the ranges that have been announced today across the polls. And if it's any side down or up, then the markets could react very sharply on the upside or downside. But having said that, I think we are entering the summer months. We are seeing globally some jitteriness across markets, and I do think we're going to have to, immediately after the formation of the government and some kind of a short-term knee-jerk reaction to the election results, the focus is again going to shift back to the budget and all the other things that the government has to do.
Those are important points, and those could be the next triggers or the next levers, and I'll talk to you about that. But let me very quickly get in Ajay's point of view as well. Ajay, do you agree with what Puneeta has had to say, that largely priced in, if the numbers board out this way on the 16th, do you believe there is limited upside, or do you think that we have a lot of legs to this rally from here on?
I think two things. One, of course, is the fact that yes, somewhat is priced in, but I think the broad domestic market, the domestic investors really were the most skeptical lot, which will come in at the end of the rally, maybe tomorrow, maybe on the 16th. So there'll be one big leg up to the rally when the domestic guys participate. And he rightly said, it's been actually a rally of a pure FI buying. Domestically, people have been actually taking the money out. If you look at the insurance, look at the mutual fund redemptions, and we are also getting a lot of redemption at this point of time, rather than people putting in the money. So I think the rally has one big leg up, is that the domestic investors are purely underinvested at this point of time. This result, I think the exit poll today, although the market exit poll announcement was on Friday when the market went up, but I think this will kind of give an assurance to them that, listen, this result is for real to an extent. It is time to enter the market. The question is, where do you enter, what do you buy? And I think that is where the trick is going to be. So the prudent investor is going to buy the good quality stocks, which is going to see upsides, a significant upside in the next year or so. The other ones may tend to buy the cheapest stock, which has kind of lagged behind and may lose out in the end. But so, in my view, rally, there is a leg up still existing. If your results come true, there will be a rally tomorrow. I'm almost sure about that. I don't know what SGX is saying just now, but there will be a rally, and there will be a rally on the 16th as well if your numbers come true. But heaven for...
All right. The SGX is pointing towards a strong opening, but I'll come back to you in just a second, Ajay. Let me bring in Meera Sanyal of the Aam Aadmi Party as well. Meera, appreciate you waiting by patiently for us. If the polls are accurate, then the Aam Aadmi Party could perhaps be faced with a disappointment in the state of Delhi, and you could perhaps be making an impressive debut in the state of Punjab. Disappointment on one hand, and perhaps you know, some degree of relief on the other. I want your quick comments on that.
So, of course, Shereen, it's going to depend on what happens on the 16th. And as you yourself have pointed out, sometimes exit polls are not the most accurate reflection. What I can tell you from what I've seen on the ground in Mumbai, and certainly what I saw in Benares, is that there is a very strong swell of support for what the Aam Aadmi Party stands for across the country. And what we're really seeing is the debut of a national alternative to the old politics. So if it's true that the Congress is going to get wiped out, the Aam Aadmi Party has positioned itself as a national opposition party and opposing in very significant ways what both the BJP and the Congress stand for. And I think that is a message of hope, irrespective of the number of seats we actually get.
Okay, Shekhar Gupta, back to you. And, you know, the battle of UP really in that sense has been the game changer as far as this particular election is concerned. We don't know which way Varanasi is likely to go. Reports seem to suggest that it might be much closer than we anticipate at this point in time. But as far as the state of UP is concerned, what are your thoughts? What did they get right? Because, you know, whether it was polarization, it was caste, it was unch, neech, and so on and so forth, what do you believe has worked in favor of the BJP? What have they managed to get right as far as the state of Uttar Pradesh is concerned?
Well, I think the state of Uttar Pradesh has really got left behind. And I think there was a great deal of optimism in the state when it voted Akhilesh Yadav into power. They gave him a majority. People saw him as a young leader. People heard him, and people thought he spoke a different language. there is deep disappointment in the state with what has happened. I think that is then reflecting in a larger disappointment with this divided politics of the state. I think people now say by and large that look, this is fine. I mean, I'll see what I do with the state. But India now needs a proper, strong government and a prime minister. I think what you're seeing also is sort of a reaction to India having a very weak prime minister, a very weak government, a very weak prime minister's office. Indians may not have voted for a leader as a prime minister. A majority of Indians in any case vote for somebody else.
Right.
In first past the post system, but they do not like their prime minister's office being diminished. They also don't like their prime minister being treated like it doesn't matter. But Indians will not accept their prime minister as a figurehead. It's one thing to have somebody for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 1 year. They've got
but Shekhar Gupta, are we heading perhaps to the other extreme? No. We had a situation where we had virtually a weak PMO. Are we heading now to a situation where the PMO is going to be running the government?
Shereen, I was coming to that. People always overcorrect. People always overcorrect because they are responding to a situation. So then people are not homeopathic doctors who sort of give you the medicine in very carefully measured mini doses. People then react and say, look, I am fed up. I don't like this kind of governance. If this becomes too powerful, it becomes too dictatorial, they will respond to that also, maybe overcorrect. We'll see what happens. But right now, people are really angry with the way the government and the Prime Minister's office and the Prime Minister's own authority have been weakened. So in reaction, they've gone to the other extreme, and really it has worked because Narendra Modi and Amit Shah for him have offered them an alternative. They've just offered them a product that sounds much more bankable right now than anything the Congress has to offer, because Congress is not even willing to say that if they came to power, if they had the numbers, who will be their prime minister. I think those times are now over in India. When you go to India's voters and say, wait for me for identity, because of dynasty, because you love me, because your parents love my parents, those times are over.
That romance is perhaps over, and that perhaps is... Sure, and that perhaps is one of the clear signals that we've got through this election process. But N.K. Singh, I want you to put on your former finance secretary's hat and tell us now about how you actually see this moving ahead, because the anticipation is that, you know, we're going to switch this plug on and we're going to go back to 8% levels of growth, which is not exactly going to play out in the way that the hope is building up at this point in time. Fiscal consolidation will continue to be a challenge. The current account deficit has been stabilized to a large extent. We do have dollars coming in at this point in time. Inflation continues to be a big worry. In terms of prioritizing the economic challenges, what would you like to see the next government, if it is a BJP-led government headed by Narendra Modi, as the polls seem to suggest, the economic priorities?
Well, I think that the first and foremost has been priority will have to be to reverse expectations, to invest confidence, and to invest trust. I think one of the key things which has got eroded with investors has been trust. And by trust, I mean multiple things, from the kind of vagaries in tax policies, retrospective tax policies, uncertainties in laws, uncertainties in implementation, an over-aggressive tax department chasing every foreign and Indian investor, chasing investment away. That, I think, is the first correction. Second, I think that an excessive amount of an entitlement-dependent welfareism, which India, at this level of per capita income, can ill afford. Now, I realize that it would be difficult to really change the laws, but within the laws, how to tweak the laws.
You preempted my question, because that's exactly what I was going to ask you. Even if you look at the BJP manifesto, let me just, articulate one scheme in particular, the Food Security Act, for instance. The BJP in its manifesto says that we will consult with all state governments and we will review the various schemes and what needs to be done. But do you truly believe that they will be bold enough to take tough decisions when it comes to these entitlement-based schemes, to actually prune expenditure, to prune spending on these schemes, as soon as they get into power?
Well, the first thing is that it's difficult to pass laws. It is even more difficult to repeal laws, which we know from our legislative history. So I think the important thing is a degree of pragmatism in being able to see within the framework of these laws how to restructure the employment security scheme into capital creating assets, into linking wage rates with productivity, into having ways in which the food security can be guaranteed without the particular manner and modality which has been spelt out, to find ways in which the Land Acquisition Act doesn't become a crippling handicap in any amount of industrialization which is to take place, and to ensure that these entitlement-driven welfareism, which we can ill afford at our level of per capita income, is administered in the manner in which the debilitating impact of this on growth can be certainly mitigated.
Okay, Sunil Munjal, let me come to you because, you know, budget season is almost upon us. Wish lists are already being prepared by industry in terms of what they would like the next government to do and so on and so forth. You know, the environment, the growth environment continues to be extremely tough. Let me talk about one sector in specific, and that is the auto sector, for instance. Excise duty exemptions that were given are set to expire at the end of June. Perhaps the next government will need to take them forward because of the state of the industry. So what do you really expect in terms of levers that the government can immediately push to rev up growth, to kickstart the engines of growth?
I want to take you back a little bit to a point, the comment you made. I don't see expectation from anybody right now there's a magic wand which will change things overnight. But there is an expectation that the new government will come in with a plan for some things to be done in the immediate next 3 months or so, and also a plan which is a 1-year plan, a 3-year plan, and a 5-year plan. And there are
articulate for us what do you believe will be the 3-month plan? Articulate for us what do you believe will be the immediate plan?
I think the first priority is, as Nandu actually articulated this quite well, is how do you bring confidence back into the market, thereby bringing investment back, thereby creating more jobs, and creating and turning around the cycle of growth. The other is to work on taxation. GST just has to be brought into India. We are all aware of the massive positive fallout of GST, which is unlikely to happen in 3 months, but the work has to start within the first 3 months. The other area, like as you said, is to find ways to continue some of the concessions given to industry where there is a definite benefit which can be visible. At the same time, create interventions which are necessary at this moment. So there is actually a whole list available, and you have the same list that I have, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I would wish this government would start to work in that manner. And I don't mean to say it has to work like a company, but it can do social spending, which is also necessary, only if it actually raises the revenues which are currently available.
But let me take that point forward. And Rajiv Chandrasekhar, I want you to comment on this. The conversation that I was having with Siddharth Birla just a while ago, that a lot of the problems or a lot of the paralysis of decision making is on account of decisions that are pending at the level of the state government. A lot of the clearances, especially on matters like land, are decisions that a state government has to take. Mr. Modi has talked about creating these regional councils where chief ministers and the central government will sort of work together, will act as one team. Do you believe that perhaps if we get this mechanism going, we could see faster clearances, we could see speedier decision making?
Shereen, I want to try and attempt to answer the question that you posed to the earlier panelists before I answer this. I don't think this is going to be this easy. We are in a situation where the new government is inheriting an economy which is a scorched economy kind of a situation. This low growth, high inflation model that we are stuck in is going to take a few years to get out of. It is not going to be trivial. This is not about making a few announcements on day one and on the 30th day finding that we've suddenly found a miracle cure for what we haven't been able to solve for years. So there are some structural issues in the economy that will take pretty steady hand on the steering wheel to navigate through this real mess that has been left for the new government. That's point number one. Point number two, on the question that you raised, I think it is a no-brainer for anybody to understand that the economy is a sum of parts. It is a question of policy making in Delhi and working in cooperation and partnership with the states. So this is a no-brainer. Unfortunately, in the UPA for the last many years, there has been absolutely zero attempt to create a consensus on any issue. And I've sat in Parliament as NK has, and I know the number of suggestions that we have made completely on a bipartisan basis that have been completely ignored. So there is clearly two things that are being signaled today by Modi, which is one is that he will work in partnership. He will reach out to the state government, even if these state governments happen to be Congress, to try and create a workable economic architecture and model. And that is what is necessary. And the second is, like I said, there is no magic wand and there is no shortcut to basically slowly walking our way and navigating our way from the mess that we find ourselves in today.
NK Singh, let me come back to you because, you know, in terms of change and continuity, while you would like the next government to change the approach as far as entitlement-based schemes are concerned, what about continuity on key reforms? For instance, this government, some would say late in the day, but did take the bold decision to try and link energy prices, or at least fuel prices, to the market, be it petrol or diesel. Do you believe that we are likely to see that continue? You know, as far as the rupee, for instance, is concerned, while the Reserve Bank, you know, does not defend a particular level, what is your own assessment as far as where the rupee could possibly be headed, given the fact that we now see inflows coming in? And what do you believe should the government's position or the Reserve Bank's position be as far as the rupee is concerned?
Well, I think that the governor of the Reserve Bank has articulated exceedingly well that he sees the rupee float between a range of 58 to 62, which I think balances out excessive volatility, which gives enough incentive to exporters and which doesn't make the import too expensive. So I think that managing the rupee in the context of large inward capital flows will be the new and a different kind of a challenge which the Reserve Bank will have to face, but a challenge which should ensure that the competitiveness of our export doesn't get unduly eroded and the imports also become reasonably priced. On the issue which you mentioned of continuity, one of the things which I think took everybody by surprise is that in the Vajpayee regime, when he came as Prime Minister, people expected the policies of the Manmohan era and the Manmohan Narasimha Rao era would be substantially reversed. But it didn't. I think he added new impetus to that. And one of the factors driving India's economic reforms has been the need to improve the quality of the reforms, but certainly to ensure that there is a reasonable amount of continuity. I expect a new burst of change to take place. Mr. Modi, in his interview, which I thought was seen by a lot of people, mentioned that in dealing with the issue of petroleum and oil prices, the poor have to be certainly protected. At the same time, expenditure outlays have to be related to expenditure outcomes. We need a much better expenditure management system than has been possible so far.
Meera Sanyal, you know, whether the Aam Aadmi Party captures 3 seats or 7 seats nationally is a matter that will be, you know, decided on as far as the 16th of May is concerned. We do know what the poll is suggesting at this point in time. But to your mind, what is the big takeaway from this entire election process? You spoke about how the Aam Aadmi has positioned itself as almost the leading opposition party, so to speak. But what, to your mind, has been the big takeaway as far as this election process is concerned?
I'd say, Shereen, there are 3 things. I think the first one speaks of leadership and in that context also succession. So if the polls are to be believed, this result which we are seeing is the consequence of a Modi wave, the dependence on one man. So what I'd like to see in the coming days, in fact, if this is true, I'd like to see what is going to be the cabinet of Mr. Modi and what are his succession plans for Gujarat. Because we have heard of no one else except of one man. And this I can tell you, one man cannot claim to lead 1.2 billion people or even represent them. And certainly not someone with such a unilateral focus. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is the need for transparency. Irrespective of the outcome of this election, people are really looking for transparency and accountability. And one of the things that has certainly puzzled me is this massive amount of money which has been spent. Some would call it propaganda, some would call it PR, which, you know, your own channels are talking about ranging between 5,000 and 10,000 crores. I'd like to know where this money came from. And if it is true that it has come from industry, well, we all know that there is always a quid pro quo. Who is going to benefit as a result of these massive handouts? I think the country needs to know that, and I certainly hope that the BJP will be transparent about the sources of its funding before it starts doing other things. And related to that, you know, things, no, let me just finish it. No, just a second.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So connected with that, so for example, we've just read that the Reliance Group is now asking for the increase in gas prices. I'd like to know how this is all going to, you know, to shape out. And the third thing I'd like to know is how will this government, and in particular Mr. Modi, who's been quite confrontational with many chief ministers, take those necessary steps to build that federational kind of collective behavior, for example, to pass GST. If the TMC is going to be the largest opposition, well, we've all heard the exchanges between, you know, Mamta Didi and Mr. Modi. Well, how is this all going to play out?
Those are legitimate concerns. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, let me very quickly get you to comment on one of the points that Meera Sanyal brings up, and that I think is something that bothers a lot of people in this country, and one would like to see us move towards a more transparent, accountable system. You know, Ali, the concerns that Meera has raised, and what do you believe the BJP or the next government ought to do to be able to bring in a more transparent system of governance?
No, I think Mr. Modi has on repeated occasions talked about zero tolerance to corruption and bringing in more transparency in governance. And it is something that I have spoken about repeatedly in Parliament as well, saying that this is something that has haunted the UPA for the last 7 years, you know, in all kinds of things, including the dealings with Spectrum.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that the people have voted against the UPA almost automatically sets a benchmark and expectation of the new government that there has to be a new standard in governance and transparency. And that is, I mean, I don't think we need to say it. I think it's almost understood that the new government will have to be seen as different, act different, and be extremely transparent in dealing with whether it's hydrocarbon and petroleum pricing, or it's spectrum pricing, or just award of contracts. I think transparency is an absolute need that has been the basis of what the rejection of the UPA in these elections.
Okay, let me get in the market voices again. Punita, let me start with you. What is the bet going to be from here on now in terms of individual sectors? We've seen the Bank Nifty rally to new record highs. You know, there is hope that because the economy is likely to revive and we are going to see growth pick up from the current 5% levels, that we are actually going to maybe bet on things like the consumer durable sector again or industrials again. What is the big bet going to be as far as you're concerned?
First of all, I think, as I said earlier, I think that a large part of the upside, the short-term upside in the market is discounted. Of course, I think there could be some knee-jerk reaction still. And then the focus is going to shift to the fundamentals of the economy. And this election is very important because it will determine the direction of the economy. And as, you know, I think to some extent we're going to see the emphasis shift back into capital-intensive industries. Manufacturing is going to benefit from this, and therefore, to your point, consumer durables, I think that's a segment that could still benefit. So I think if you look, you have to really now look at the value trade and where is the valuation attractive and where are we going to see earnings growth sustain. It's going to get very stock specific because a large part of the, you know, general move, sector specific move has happened. I'm not sure banking is the right place to be, but because banking, you really have to look at the inflation numbers and the interest rates and the overall economy. Obviously, there's a lot of restructuring that needs to happen to improve the NPAs. So I think the capital-intensive industrial sector still have more potential, but you have to really be very, very stock-specific. And you know, the other point you had mentioned, and I was
go ahead.
I was just thinking about your point on domestic investors not still invested in the rally being led by FIIs. Well, yes, there has been FII buying, but the broader base of FIIs, there's a lot more on the fringes that hasn't yet come, I think, and that could still come. On the domestic side, a lot of the large, big-named investors and whoever I've spoken to is still fairly long India, yes, but the retail investor hasn't flown right back into equities. So I think you might see that, but I do think the big money could still come from FIIs.
Okay, Ajay, let me quickly get your comments on the sectors or the stocks that you're going to be betting on, and you better stick your neck out and tell me where we're going to open for trade tomorrow before we quickly take a break and come back.
I think the sectors are very clearly going to be PSU and oil marketing companies going to be one big sector, because the one place government can push the lever very fast is the PSU privatization and PSU to start spending their hoards of cash. So this sector, I think, is getting re-rated already in the market. We'll see substantially more re-rating. Number two will be the material companies. You already saw Coal India flying today, is going to fly again tomorrow. And companies with a lot of NMDC, the same block of companies, these companies would see the first big flush, because they're the first ones to get the benefit of maybe a stronger government which allows these materials to be used, produced and sold in a free market economy. Number three is, most likely these companies will be the first ones to be sold in the market to raise the money, because ultimately money needs to be raised, because as you rightly said, fiscal deficit doesn't allow much leverage at this point of time. I think sector we don't want to be buying into at this level is going to be, as Miraji just said, is the banking sector, because the news is not looking good. It may get overlooked tomorrow or day after, but the news in the banking sector is not looking good. The fourth one is the engineering sector. Things like L&T, Mahindra, I think will be the prime gainers. And of course, Sunilji sitting there, his company is already a big gainer, Hero MotoCorp. People will go and flock to the two-wheelers. But I would still believe that L&T and Mahindra would be the biggest gainer, not for reason of engineering, but for the reason of the defense contract which will come their way in the domestic market. So that's a kind of roughly the segment where we believe that the rally should focus on from today's standpoint, what is already the prices today.
Well, I hope Mr. Munjal has a big smile on his face, but I'm going to take a quick commercial break and come back and discuss the reform agenda facing the next government, and also talk about things like disinvestment, privatization, what we could see if there is a Modi-led government at the center. Come back to us. You're watching our special coverage here on CNBC-TV18.